Good afternoon and welcome to TalkSports. It is our weekend program, Saturday Sports Special to be exact. A warm welcome. Well, I say a warm because some places it might be warm. I know it's getting ready to warm up on the East Coast here, particularly in New York. Well, Rudian will let us know what's happening over in Toronto, Canada. And I know it was a very warm week for those, particularly in the Caribbean, but I understood there was some rain over the past day or two. Could have been today, I don't know. But yesterday I know it was raining, but nevertheless. And a little later on, well, just in a few more minutes, we'll be joined by our special guest, Miss Carole Beckford, who will be speaking to us about her push, her idea, her proposal for a Caribbean Sport Development Fund. But in the meantime, let me say a warm welcome to my co-host, Rudian Sullivan in Toronto. Good afternoon to you, Rudian.
Pleasure. Good afternoon to you, Michael. It's good to see you. Certainly, on Thursday, I thought winter was back because it was really, it felt like winter again on Thursday, but it's warming up, a little cloudy today. It looks like rain. But certainly, they say we're in the 20s, but I don't know. I don't see it. But certainly, the weather is getting there.
Yep. Yes, it is. It is. And what else can you expect around this time? I mean, it's most time, as we say, is the best time of the year, Yeah, but as soon as Carole picks up with us, we will have her. I see she's already there. She had a little some little chores to do, and she's getting organized, and she will join us momentarily. But before that, Rudian, quickly, just to let you know, well, there's a friendly, international friendly going on between Grenada and Ireland.
And Ireland, yes.
In Spain, and at halftime, the score 0-0. Right, 0-0 is the score. Yeah, 0-0 halftime. And just to let you know that, following this weekend is championship weekend. The athletes are trying to get on to the in some cases the NCAA
regionals.
Regionals, and then hopefully after regionals they get the championship. But then we have the NJCAA championship this weekend, right? Yes. And just to let you know that the athletes are doing pretty well. In fact,
we had success.
Jamora Alves, in fact, just won the discus throw in the women's. That's in the Big East, and a new record, new national record. She was looking for 56, but she did 55.89. She's actually 55.89. So she won the shot put yesterday. Was yesterday? Yeah.
Shot put, I think she did 15.
Yeah. So she did the shot
something. Yeah.
And now she won the discus.
Yes.
So she's into the regionals, right? The in Kentucky, 2 weekends from now.
Yeah, Lexington. Yeah.
So she's going good. I think she may attempt the hammer later on. I'm not sure, but I see it's down for the hammer, right?
Yeah.
And then we see the other athletes are doing well. Nazio John. He's into the final of the he's into the next round of the 200 meters, I should say. And the quarter milers are doing pretty well. Okay.
Very well.
The quarter milers are doing well. We see, I think Carole just got in and then got out. I think let me see if she's saying that she is locked out now. So I'll get her back in. Yes, so the guys are doing, and girls, I should say, doing pretty well. A lot of athletes in the NJCAA.
Yeah, and they're running very well. I mean, we got a slew of them running in the 45s. Certainly, I'm just excited to start seeing Grenada national 4x4 team, and that's really But I can't wait to see that because it was a cry for having the athletes. Now they are there. It is time to utilize them because we have them now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay then. So I think Carol is on. Yes, she is on. I hope she doesn't get locked out again. She's letting me know that she is there. Oops. Yeah, she is there. Right. Stay right there. So, folks, well, as we continue to examine the issues and the ideas and developments shaping sporting Grenada, the Caribbean, and beyond, well, today's program focuses on an area that continues to generate growing discussion across the region: the need for stronger and more sustainable investment in Caribbean sport, right? And joining, let me make sure that, yes, right. So Carol is there. So as I said, joining us is Carole Beckford of Jamaica, a respected sports marketer. She's a media professional. She's an author as well. Yes, as I said, let me make sure that I give Carol all the kudos, right? She is, the ABCs of the Caribbean sport marketing and psychology. We'll talk about that as well. And yes, so apart from being all this an author, she's also a communications specialist with years of experience working within the regional sporting landscape. And Ms. Beckford has been advocating, for the establishment of a Caribbean Sport Development Fund. Yes. Basically arguing that, regional governments and stakeholders must begin, treating sport not only as competition and mere entertainment, but as a serious contributor to economic growth, tourism, we say youth development, and also some level of national identity. So this afternoon we will explore the opportunities, the challenges, and the broader vision for sport as a sustainable and pillar of Caribbean development. Carole Beckford, though, it's not her first time, but at least I will welcome her. Good afternoon, Carole.
Hi, Michael, and hi, Rudison.
Yes,
Pleasure to be here.
right.
I'm
Good
traveling,
afternoon.
so I will be home in another 5 minutes. So I'll go to a
That's
steadier
fine.
location. But I couldn't give up on the
Yeah,
opportunity to speak to you guys. Anything
right.
for
And
sport is really what the commitment is.
certainly. And
Yes.
but so while you on your commute between there and home, you have been advocating for a Caribbean Sport Development Fund. What exactly would such a fund look like, Carol?
The truth is, for over a century, Caribbean athletes have taken over the world. And I think it is only fair to say that our commitment has been very good for our athletes. So they're talented, they have good technical preparation, but there are some things that we need to do to add value to what we contribute. So clearly, as I said, we're talented, but we can't measure up if we don't have similar facilities. And how we get that? People have to invest. So the region probably has close to 300 medals overall in track and field between Jamaica that has 94 Olympics and a couple world championships. The rest of the countries, especially in the last 15 years, have really stepped up people, right? And I think it is important we look at sports as an avenue for investment. Um, Going forward, and some of the things we have done, we have to feed ourselves better. That's one. So agriculture. We have to make intra-regional travel more cheaper and more reasonable, so
And
we can get
accessible.
to
Yeah.
right. So we
Yeah.
can get to watch each other participate because live sports is still the thing. The carnivals have been doing well. And although I am a sports advocate, when I talk about sports, I also want to make reference to entertainment.
Mhm.
So, what you call crop over, Trinidad Carnival, while
Yeah,
those
Spice
are
Must,
going on,
Spice Must in Grenada.
Price Mart, yes, St. Lucia,
Yeah.
jazz, all of that. So while that is going on, we have football, cricket, track and field, swimming, hockey, everything. But we need facilities. The young man down in Sri Lanka has good fields. That's why when he gets to the senior level, he's good. We need good fields. We have people who do venue management because people are studying everything. So I'm saying make the investment. Look at the future. Look at 20 years and see where we want to go, how many more medals we want, and make the plan. There are models. There are several models. I've written about them. People are writing about them. Let's just get it done. Let's do it as Nike says.
Yeah. But why do you believe this conversation is urgent at this time?
Um, I think our competitive advantage is in sport, and we don't realize that. That's the truth. Um, I think it's. I don't want to be too, what you call it, critical, but I think sport was seen as something that entertained our masters. But now it is a big business. I mean, when Khadija Shaw, a female, can be almost guaranteeing £1 million to play football as a female, that's incredible. I'm not even talking about the fact that some of our other athletes, footballers especially, as in soccer, would have been making in the top earning. Leon Bailey and some of those other guys. And we know Jamaica alone have over 500 international players spread across the world in football. Barbados just got a whole set, right? That we don't even start to talk. Haiti's Haiti's entree into the World Cup will create a lot of openings for them.
Right.
Curacao.
Curacao.
So
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm saying that is money. If they come back home, they buy land, they invest, they spend the money. But if the money comes back, the money comes back. So that's not a doubt. But
Mhm.
fix the field. Give us facilities. May, let us allow us to travel to see each other. If I live in America, I can jump on a bus from New York to Houston. I can jump on a train. I can take a flight, and they're all reasonable packages.
Mhm. Um, in your book, you made mention. I mean, and the book is a while ago, but it's still relevant. How and we're talking about how they were able to do the brand, for example, and you use four Jamaicans: Chris Gale, Alia Atkinson. Well, I should say three Jamaicans in particular, but four Caribbean sports personalities: Chris Gale, Alia Atkinson. You use Shelly Fraser Price and Dwayne Bravo. And in the case of Dwayne Bravo, you spoke about him with cricket and how he supplements the sport with music because he came out as a big entertainer.
Yeah.
Nothing away from Chris Gale too, who I mean is going all over the world as a former cricketer himself, but now is a sports model. You know all these other things. Do you think we are? I mean, making use and taking example of all these opportunities, like how these folks have done that.
No, the athletes themselves, but I think as a region or as a country, there's not enough to support
Just for what?
because right, and so that's there. Like a doctor who retired, probably is close to 70, an engineer. The athletes run for 10 to 15 years if you're lucky. What happens after? So we give them access to education so they can go to school, get a degree, and invest. And so short-term incentives, things to make them want to reinvest. A lot of the athletes like restaurants or food joints or entertainment facilities. I see Shelly doing the hair thing. And it's global. They either do perfumes, hair, um, or lines of merchandise to include manufactured products. What is the incentive for them to stay in business and not migrate? I mean, Merlin Otti went to Slovenia. And let's talk about that, the free trade or the access to another jurisdiction that offers you incentives to be able to produce and live a meaningful life is becoming more attractive. And the region is not supplementing that by being creative. And it calls for creativity. We have too many economists and engineers and other professions in the business not to engage athletes as much as we should. So yes, they win medals. But you know what? It's 8, 9 months of dedicated work to run 10 seconds. It's 8, 9 months of dedicated work to score 39 goals in a season. And so that's work. That's 3 hours, 6 hours a day for 40 weeks in a year. It's work. And so full of how we look at that. And if that is our competitive advantage, then we should exercise creativity um, to ensure that these athletes are engaged, live a meaningful life, and can contribute. They make a lot of money in the first 10 years, right? And they maximize their efforts. Not all of them convert to superstars, but some of them are steady. Some become media people, some own restaurants, some own farms, and they do things. Some of them just wanted to run to prove something and then they stop. But some want to live in the life of an athlete. So they own, they create stuff that forms a trajectory of work in the business of sport. So incentives, pretty much like agriculture, when you're building a hotel, same kind of incentive should be offered to these athletes to be able to live a meaningful life.
Mhm. So let's talk about how you think the Caribbean government, for your proposal, should go about with that fund.
Well, the fund can start from budget, pretty much like how you started. Where a significant, or not significant, but a portion of your budget goes towards sports development. Let's start with infrastructure because I think that's our weakest. And once the next generation has access to better facilities, because if you're running against someone in New Zealand, you have to have the same facilities. Your talent is already up there. But if you're running on grass and then running on turf, and when you go to the championship, you're running on turf, you're going to need turf to practice on, right? You're going to need the same model. I mean, nutrition is not an issue. I think we can feed our people in terms of telling them what to do. But the truth is, the science of it, the infrastructure side of it, we're not measuring up. And if we're going to do it, we have to measure up in that respect. So that's the first one. So the fund. So 1% of your budget goes towards sports development. Have high performance centers, whatever you want to call them, academies across the island to do the models of, it's like a finishing school, and have regular competition. So you put agriculture, travel, and all the other incentives around the sports to ensure that there is a package that if I say I play football for 10 years and I want to start a business, I'm incentivized to do this for the next first 3 years. And there, these things exist, Michael and Rudy. They exist on books, but we just need to sample it.
Yeah.
So get the fund, have people apply. We can give. I mean, IOC has a model. Olympic Solidarity has a model, and we can try that. But I think infrastructure is one of the issues, and trust me, inter-regional travel, inter and intra-regional travel, yeah, it's really really bad.
Yeah. Carole, you want some time to
Yes,
traverse?
let me go
Yeah.
inside.
No
So
problem. And we continue that. Yeah, no problem. Once you get on, we'll continue that. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Very interesting conversation, Rudy and Carole.
No, certainly.
The issues that we
we spoke about.
So
Yeah.
Carole, we back on and we have some more questions to discuss.
Yes.
Folks, is what we are talking about. Yeah. Yeah. So while we wait for Carol to come back, Rudy, and let's get back on to, and then we had the Diamond League on today, right?
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
I didn't know,
See
I don't know
Sherry
much
here.
of anything,
I-
but it was very interesting.
Very, very, very
Yeah.
interesting.
Mhm.
It's almost scary to see um, Shani back, and she looks really good.
I, I,
Um,
I was also impressed with the African sprinters,
the
the
African
African
sprinters,
sprinters.
yeah.
You know, at
They're,
this time
they're,
of the
they're, they're-
year,
go ahead.
I was saying at this time of the year, folks from Africa and Australia and these places, so they tend to do pretty well, right? At this time of the year.
Yeah,
Give us probably a few weeks or so, you'll see the folks from the Western Hemisphere, the United States, the
yeah,
Caribbean, and thing coming on and their own and thing like that. So just
yeah.
just
I think a part of it is we're dealing with the time difference, and their season
mhm.
compared to our season, you know. So we kind of have that. When you look at the American season, you look at later on, you see because the championship is kind of late in the season, right? Um, so you kind of see the difference in that. But I also seen that what's happening not only in Botswana but across the African nation is the things that we talk about. We are seeing the support in government. We are seeing the support is supporting those athletes. So when you see that, you see the athletes is going out there and they're working hard. And that's one of the things that is so amazing about in the African nation because, and I think they're performing to the world too. Because I also think that they want to host the Olympics. I think an African nation would like to host the Olympics. I heard about talk about that in the past, and I think they are working towards that. So
Right.
if they're performing well, the opportunity might be there for them to start saying, "Hey, we have the facilities, and we have this and we have that. Maybe we can." So
Yeah. All right. So Carol is back with us. Let's
yes.
out of here, and as we continue the discussion, this time we'll I want to ask Carol about um, how could regional governments realistically contribute to and sustain such a fund, because you asking them to do something that they never really wanted to do. Because remember, whenever we ask about chopping, especially when it comes to budgets and things like that, so sports is the first one they go to and they start chopping. So how do you try to convince those regional governments, first to contribute and then second to sustain to such a fund that you're proposing?
Um, Thanks again for having me. I think the sports ministers need to advocate because all sports ministers now are serious about development. And they can start by giving up 1% of each of their budget towards this fund. It needs to be at the CARICOM level. We had a sports committee many years ago, and it wasn't CARICOM just never bothered with that. So that has gone. So that committee needs to resume. And then I think I'd made some recommendations about how you uh create like a selection panel for funding, meaning how you become eligible for funding. But I think country-wise should look at its assets and decide on what are the sports they're doing, how they're doing in it, and then look at the infrastructure and fix that. In my own country, we play I think up to 50 sports. Some are the prime and core. So football, cricket, track and field, basketball, netball. Those are the five top ones. And we have established ourselves internationally in that where we're ranked. But we have one or two tennis people that form good networks. So we don't need a tennis court per parish, but we probably need one in each zone. We have counties, so we have three counties. So there are sports planners out there who can actually look at the locations or the jurisdictions
Mhm.
and determine how those fall into place, right? Um, and look at a wider policy. Track and field is clearly one of our strong thing as a region. And believe it or not, Grenada, St. Lucia, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Haiti, and we keep forgetting Haiti a lot. There and Jamaica from track and field. Football, same. So football, track and field. Boxing, Guyana has good boxers. So I'm saying let's look at where they at CARICOM and put them in a schedule, see how much money is being earned globally, and see where competitive advantages are. I mean, I'm saying it sounds simple. I'm making it sound simple because I've done the research to see where we are. And pretty much like how the UA, I think UA has failed because UA has now created silos. So you don't have to come to Jamaica to do medicine anymore. You don't have to go to Trinidad to do engineering because now everybody has set up their own spots. So that experiment has failed. But we can start it back. So if the boxing people are in Ghana, let's send them down to Ghana to train. If the marathoners are over in Curacao, send them down there. And if you want the sprinters to do well, send them to Jamaica. For the footballers, send them to Haiti and Barbados. So I'm saying everybody has a strength. Because we have athletes from everywhere here, track and field athletes. We have them from Namibia. We had a group of Australians here in 2012, and they have made every world championship final in the 4x1 and 4x4 since they've come here. They came to GC Foster, they trained with Asafa, had access to Usain Bolt and so on, and experience. And they have been, I mean, when I looked at the world relays the other day, they were in the 4x1 final, Australia. And they were influenced by coming to this wonderful region. And I'm saying we can make money from that. We can import the people to come train 6 weeks, use the models, send them back, and they go to finish up and do what they want to do. And they will pay millions of dollars to come here. Who doesn't want to go to the Bahamas to see where Shauna Weaver Miller is from? Who doesn't want to see where Julian Alfred is from? And clearly, people still coming here to try to find out what Usain Bolt was eating while he was competing. So it's an attraction for us that we can package around to earn from it, and we're not doing that. But we must have a structure. We must have a structure that speaks to our own development. So while we're inviting people to come, we must be powering up our own people to continue to do well.
And that can be, as I said, in different sports, for example, because for cricket, for example, we know Barbados, for one, has had produced so many greats over the years. I mean, when it was Barbados, then there was Jamaica, Guyana, different territories in different sporting disciplines. And you mentioned St. Lucia, Julian Alfred. We can say probably Kirani James for Grenada. We can use various islands with their strength, and definitely their areas. Kathy Harper Hall, good afternoon to you. Hi, Michael. Sorry to join so late, but I'm here. Good afternoon to you, Kathy. Kathy, as you know, is long-standing.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I've had the pleasure of working with Kathy through netball and so on. So even netball, that is widening its scope and getting into the Americas. It's significant. We now have, I think, 9 Jamaicans playing in
Australia and New Zealand.
Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
And so, but look, there are some things that we must take from it. The cricketers were doing county cricket. And after we started to beat them, they kind of stopped. But we now have CPL, and we're getting people to come. So we have to use our resources. We have to be smart about how we do it. And listen, all the books are out there, all the theories are out there. The smart theories have to work. So listen, it's not like we don't have great thinkers down this side. So it is significant for us to be able to make money from it. That's really what I want to say. There must be an economic spinning point. And people love us. People like how we look. People like how we sound. People like how we dance. People like our food.
Right.
And so we must put that together. All right. So Messi can play. Everybody knows. But beyond Messi's playing, nobody is running down to Argentina. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So true. So
The
true.
allure of that Caribbean cultural icon, you know.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
also need to get our business corporate people to put our athletes in their ads. When I look at Capital One, I see Magic Johnson, I see Serena, I see
Yeah.
The Rock. I want to see Shauna Miller, Shelley Ann Fraser, Sharika Jackson, and Julian Alfred in an ad. Why? I mean, it took one show speed to come here to show us how beautiful the Caribbean is. Come on, don't even start me up on that. So I need to see Haley Matthews, Stephanie Taylor, Khadijah Shaw in an ad showcasing the best of the Caribbean. And they are the best of the Caribbean. So whether it's rum, drinks, food, whatever, let's do that.
Yeah, a nice appeal to especially our regional conglomerates, to use our
Uh,
Caribbean
yeah.
sports personalities. Yeah. Rudian?
Yes, certainly. First and foremost, I have to give you the praise for wearing that jersey you're wearing today. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, so when I see that, you are my best friend today. So, when I see that, it brings joy to me.
40
Um,
years, 40 years.
and
I'm in my
I,
40th season as a fan.
as a fan, certainly, I'm not all the way up there yet, but when I started, so a little bit of close. Um, so with everything that you said, and it's good. Michael and I spoke about a lot of these things that you have advocating for such a long time on this show many times. Now, how do you get government the government bodies together to display your thoughts, your theory, and how we can get things flowing?
I think I was hoping CARICOM would have been more settled this year, but we'll see how that works out. Back in the day, when I sat on a committee with Richie Richardson, Peter Adrian, what's her name from Trinidad, Iva Gludon. I think there are some advocates across the region that can get it together. And so whether it's Chris Gale, maybe it's Chris, because Chris is now um, a big man. So whether it's Chris, you're saying Dwayne,
Yeah.
um, I think the athletes, Juliet Cuthbert, Pauline Davis, those people that can say, guys, listen, we have had so much success over the years. Let's make it better. Let's give the next generation a chance. And that's really the truth. They need to have an opportunity to do better. And so there are enough of people like myself who know these athletes or former athletes well, but just to get them together. And because they don't want to work in a corporate office. They want to do sports. They want to do broadcasting. They want to be managers and so on. And if we don't have the business of sport making the money that we ought to be making, then there's no life for them. So I think that's the first place. So some Olympians, some greats, and I'm sure Chris would be ready. The only thing is that um, they're not as diplomatic as us, so they will say things that will upset people. But that's how life is.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so
true.
and just get some creative things going. I think the first ad with our Caribbean people, for example, imagine an ad with Haley, Khadijah, Shelley, Julian, and Bravo. There must be a story between them. They're all from communities. Something advertising XM rum, for example. Something. Because they're all adults now, so they can do rum advertising. I mean, we all learned this in school, so I don't know why we're not putting this into practice.
No, certainly. So true.
Do you think Caribbean governments fully understand the economic value? And I say, probably I should add the true economic value of sport. I
Probably
mean,
not true, but they think it's fanfare,
pastime?
something. Yeah, fanfare. I'll say not pastime because they know it's work. When I hear Daryl Massey from Antigua, he understands. He also played as an athlete. Maybe we need to get former athletes to become ministers of sport. We should sign a petition. Um, and see, because some of them have political ambitions, by the way. Waver Hines is in Parliament in Jamaica. Daryl was a former athlete. Glenn Phillip down in St. Kitts.
Atto Boland was a senator in
Atta
Trinidad.
Boland was a senator in Trinidad, right?
Yeah.
And so there are some possibilities. So I will offer myself to coordinate, to initiate, and to get them going. But CARICOM Sports Committee need to be reformed, and the Prime Ministers have it as a duty because they all want to take pictures with the athletes when they come back from wherever and invite them to the office of the Prime Minister and all that stuff. How you think? So when you go to training from November until June and you run for the next 3 months and you get 3 weeks break because by November again you're going back to training. We as corporate people, we get what? After 10 years, you get 21 days. It's no different, but our lifeline, we can work till we're 70. There's no athlete that can work until they're 70.
So true.
Yeah. Cathy says that there is COSAD, which is made up mainly of sports ministers across the Caribbean. And I think once some time ago, well, we heard a lot. We haven't heard of recent. They had the subcommittee, the ministerial subcommittee within CARICOM that deals specifically with cricket, not sport, but just cricket. But we have always advocated for that subcommittee to broaden its span to encompass all sports in the Caribbean, not just cricket.
Oh yeah, so that was one of the weaknesses of the CARICOM, because it was a cricket committee. And then when Richie, myself, Peter, Adrian, Ivor glued on, it was through the CARICOM sports office led by Miss Joseph, and Brown, Dr. Brown. And then they dismantled it totally. And so cricket is still a big thing, Cricket requires a whole another discussion, because what we have done to it, we have centralized it as opposed to, so there are models. And forgive me, I worked with Dave Cameron, and he had some great ideas. But Dave's way to communicate wasn't in keeping with how they wanted us to speak, because we're sports people. Shut up and dribble. No, we're not doing that. We are just as smart. We have degrees in other things, just that we love sport, right? I have a postgraduate degree in human resource management, and I am a trained journalist. My only study in sports is at the college level. I'm a PE teacher, and to be fair, it has become my life, and I've used HR and media and marketing to push my love for sport. So, and so we're smart and we're dedicated, we're disciplined if we can apply that. If some of these government people applied some of the stuff that athletes did, we would have fabulous economies across the Caribbean. We wouldn't be here having this conversation. We'd have so much money. The overdependence of tourism, for example. Right? We should be making more rum. Why are we not selling more rum? El Dorado is one of the best rums in the region. I have other opinions as a drinker, but that's another story.
but as you mentioned tourism, how can sport contribute more meaningfully to tourism, to employment, and by extension, national development?
Have more events, and make it easy for people to come. Make it easier for people to come, and cheap and more reasonable. Travel has to be reasonable, and keep them here. The people who come from Europe want to come here for 2 weeks. The Americans are short stay, so they want the shorter sport and do other creative things. So yes, there's cricket, there's football, and those have fans. But create events that people like me who used to play sport that are retired. What would I go to do? I'm not just going to travel to go visit a castle or something. No, I want to get engaged. I want to do something that makes me want to compete, have some good food, and party. What are those events? And people will come. So you're talking about 5 to 7 days. People are spending up to $700 a day. Do the math. $700 a day, 5 days. That's $4,000 for Thursday to Sunday. And if you can get 1 million people to come here, sport tourists are the third biggest spenders in tourism. And they eat the most food and they party. Think about that for a second. People go to watch World Cup. They will party all night. And the first part, they party all night and they eat. In addition to buying expensive tickets for the sports. It's a win-win. So we have to plan more events. Yeah.
But how do tourism, let's use track and field for example, utilize the athletes who are in now, not the past, but the present athletes. Um, I think Jamaica tourism fail by not utilizing Usain Bolt when he was in his prime. And I think and I see a lot of other islands is doing the same thing. They are failing not utilizing those athletes who are in the prime now into the tourism and utilizing them to create more people into the country. So is that a failure for tourism?
What I think happens is that they don't think it's a job. So they want to ask him to make an appearance without paying him. You can't ask doctor, the gynecologist, to come and pay your visit. No, you have to pay. The dermatologist has to pay. You have to pay them. The engineer to come and assess my property to see if I can build on it. That's a fee. You can't ask Michelle to come and perform for free. That's Michelle's work. That's Bunji Garlin's work. That's Shaggy's work. That's Beanie Man's work. That's their job. That is their job. That's what they went to school. Kez did Tiny Desk the other day, and the views on YouTube have gone through the roof. People want the music, so pay for it. So don't ask me to come and say, oh, give me a discount. No, you can't ask the dermatologist for a discount.
So basically, you're saying they have been shortchanging our sportsmen and sportswomen.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? It will help the athletes fall into line. I mean, I would have worked with some of them, and I know they have bad habits, right? But if they're treated seriously, in a way, they'll fall in line because they know that they're going to have to wake up in the morning, get up and go, speak, play, that kind of a thing. So we need to centralize focus and have meaningful schedules and records for these people.
Well, before I ask you that next question there, Kathy has been suggesting that we need to lobby for the re-establishment of the CARICOM and OECS sports desk, right? Yeah. And we know, particularly for the sub-region, how important the OECS sports desk was for when it was particularly led by Joseph Respire, for example, and how significant it played a role in the development of sports and a lot of sports throughout the sub-region and things like that. So, but what examples, Carole, and globally in particular, or even regionally, show sport being successfully used as an economic driver? I don't know if there's any in the region we can point to, but initially you said there are some some things around the world that we can probably look at. What specifically you think we can look at as probably examples, right? And they have been successfully, used as economic drivers.
Well, Malaysia, Scotland, Botswana. So let me give you a story about Botswana. When I worked at Jampro many years ago, we had something called nation branding. Simon Anholt came to Jamaica, told us about things. And then we had World Cup cricket across the region, 2007. And Jamaica hosted what they call the business clubs. And we brought investors in and so on. Botswana engaged us and we helped them. Look at Botswana today. Look at that. They have the same 2.6 million people. They hosted one of the best world relays I've seen. and that's track and field. Botswana has figured out how to reduce their crime. Colombia has also done it. So it's a whole social agenda project. It's not just sports. This country has decided to use what we call the wider creative industries. And the creative industries include food, so it's gastronomy, sports, and entertainment, to really focus their resident population on a new way of life. Because think about it, if you have a music festival every quarter, you have carpenters, soundman, light, all of that. You employ a whole heap of people. If your destination is a film destination, you're employing line people, production, and you have to feed them, and them want to go out. I mean, I can give you examples. When they come here to shoot a commercial, for example, Gatorade, big company, they carry 23 people. They're spending $500 a day, and that is work for them. So they shoot the commercial, but it's work. So we have to create a model that suits our need. Our islands are pretty. We have good waterfront. We have good mountains in some areas. Use the locations as a drive to get excitement. In addition to the talent, you imagine, think about Trinidad and Tobago that has Machelle, Bunji, Destra, Dwayne Bravo, Brian Lara. And I'm using just five. And let me drop in, um, oh boy, the Hazy Crawford Stadium, in other words. So you have history on top of history and talent on talent. And imagine you see Brian, Dwayne, Haley, Marissa Aguilera. In other words, the athletes. And athletes for me is a wider context of sporting people, sporting greats.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the people that they see. I lived in Antigua for 4 years, and every time one of the Jamaican artists came, first of all, I never know so much people live in Antigua, so I don't know where they come from to come and watch. Sailing Week, Third World is always there. Third World, after 50 years of touring, is still very popular. But I will run over to St. Kitts to see whomever comes for the St. Kitts Music Festival. I was there
Yes,
one
sir.
year when Shabarangs came. And let me tell you, I was pleasantly surprised at how people went. And they come and they go back. And so people engage in entertainment and sports products, eat and party. And those are the three things that people pay the most money for. So if you do the model for the economics, your economy will make money.
Mm-hmm. So what changes you see are needed in the way Caribbean sport is marketed and commercialized?
All right, so we need a godfather or a godmother. Because that's it, that's our style. If somebody outside of the mo- outside of the picture doesn't tell us, it's not believable. So that's the first thing.
Yeah.
And then get the sports ministers, re-energize COSAD and that group. I don't like the division of the OECS and the wider and the bigger Caribbean. I don't like that, because it creates division. And having lived in Antigua and I'm from Jamaica, I understand the politics very well. I don't like it because St. Lucia's strength is Jamaica's weakness and opposite. There are things that St. Lucia has that Jamaica doesn't have, but Jamaica has numbers and notoriety. So let's work together. Um, the older politicians showed us. So PJ Gonzalez and those people were all friends. I don't even know if these prime ministers talk to each other. No, outside of politics. And so that in itself, to me, so we need some advocates. And I see somebody like Omari Banks. So it's the cricketers with Shelley and a few other people. I could think of something, a group of youngsters with some mentors, some business people. I hate to say it, but somebody of a lighter hue. Um, I know it's sad, Michael, but it's one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, but CARICOM. So there are things we can do for ourselves. Reorganize the sports team in CARICOM. Have a The sports ministers should meet before they go back to LA in 2028. Look at the priorities and see where we're gonna go and get investors. People out there want to invest in it, but they don't know what to invest in because nobody's telling them.
Mm-hmm. And sports is not something they use as an option for investment.
Right. It's not. It's not. You still want physical brick and mortar thing,
Mm-hmm.
but what's not good to invest in a human being?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And how important is the private sector and the private sector involvement, I should say, in building sustainable sports programs?
No, so the private sector is going to pay, but they're not going to pay if they don't have incentives.
Mm-hmm.
Government policies have to devise the incentives. So have short term. So if you're building a hotel, you can import beds and forks and knives and things for the first 5 years because that's will. What is the incentive towards sports? How many people come into the country? That kind of a thing. I've spoken about that at tourism conferences. I mean, I begged CTO and CHT to talk about sports. They had Chris Darren like an emblem of charm at one of their events, and then they don't do. If you don't write and custom, they don't pay no mind. And so I get annoyed, but I'm not gonna stop. Once I have life, I'm still gonna advocate for sports. So here we are today. But Michael and Rudy, I have to run, unfortunately. So I
Yeah.
hope I've stirred your imagination again. And all the books that I've written, including the last one, which you don't have yet, it's about play. Did you get that one's about
No.
children? So
No.
I'm starting back the story. So the children know of the next generation. They need to play, they need to be outdoor because it is still one of the most suitable um, activity to be engaged in.
Mm-hmm. But before you run off, then probably this might be a good segue for you to leave by what are the biggest challenges athletes face after transitioning from junior to elite competition?
Yeah.
Um, Adjusting in society. So it depends on where you're from and how you're engaged. You don't see yourself fitting in. Uh, Unfortunately for us, we don't have a lot of jocks in the Caribbean. Meaning, most of our athletes are trained and can do something else. So they convert into coaches, technical people,
Mm-hmm.
presidents. Some of them go into media, and some of them go into business, and some of the ladies just go have their families and do them things. So we don't have that issue, but um, just a continuity on their profession. They want to be able to know that they can give back, but give back at a higher level. So the infrastructure is a big thing. Infrastructure is probably the biggest thing because you can't train on grass and beat the guy who's down in Botswana. You can't beat Leslie Tobago by running on grass. No, that's not possible. In other words, you need the best technical. So you could have a great coach and have all the talent, but when you go to the world championship, is who has the competitive edge and who wants it more. And
Yeah.
that is not sold in shops. You have to want it more.
Yeah.
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 All right then. Thank you very much,
Certainly.
Carol. Always a pleasure having you. Have always a
Thank
pleasure
you very
speaking to
much,
you.
Carol.
Yeah, man. All right, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you
we
so
All
keep
much.
in
right. Have a
touch.
good one.
Thank you then. Right.
Yeah,
All
All
man.
right.
Take
right then. So that's Carole Beckford from Jamaica speaking to us. And somewhere in Jamaica, I should say. And certainly, Rudy, and some food for thought, I should say, because certainly we have seen, and we're hoping that, Caribbean territories can really collaborate enough on sport development
Yeah.
because with the geopolitics now, um, we don't know how that will fit in with, Trinidad and Tobago saying one thing and probably Guyana another, Jamaica another, and it's almost as if everyone for themselves, and we're wondering
Yeah.
if that will have an effect in terms of sports. Yes, we looking at the bigger picture in terms of our sportsmen and sportswomen, and the sort of pride and glory they bring for the region.
Good brand for the region.
But
Yeah.
are we making the investment? Are we making the serious investment? And investments rather, even for those to follow, and yes, as she rightly said, and we know that it's very commonplace. Whenever someone does something big, there's the picture taken and all of that. And then a few days after, we don't hear much, we don't hear that much again, but certainly it's a lot to consider. Kyron says, Carole is absolutely on point. We have not maximized our star power athletes in the past to boost our sport tourism sector. It lacks serious marketing. The athletes have to be commercialized. That's critical to making inroads in sport tourism. We've got to get serious about this initiative. And Theo, good afternoon. Theo Duncan says, I hope those ministers and the persons involved in sports listening. Well, hope so, because these are things that we have been seeing for quite a while.
But Michael, how do we get athletes on the table? And I think that's something that's been lacking for a long time. Or in another question, should athletes start thinking of being unionized? Should they have a union? Should they have someone who's speaking for them to fight for them on certain things? How do we get there?
But even with unions and being unionized, whether or not that will how much impact that will have, but it's something that can be considered. Kathy says more professional leagues across the more popular sports, certainly. Yes. And I think that could be, well, apart from requiring the finance, I think if we have those professional leagues, Rudy, and I don't know if you think so, that it will probably have a serious look, For example, I looked at the Scottish League, and I'm just using football, for example. Only 6 teams, Only 6 teams, the Scottish League. And I don't know if we have to look at the model of having probably starting as a semi-professional, into the professional aspect of it. But the professional side of things may get the attention of one, the private sector, and probably 2, the political wigs. They may realize that, hey, this is serious now. This is an opportunity for our sportsmen and sportswomen in various disciplines to earn a living, and not just track and field. So we have a semi-professional or professional football league, professional league, netball, netball, probably volleyball, cricket, these sort of things like that. So these are things that probably for the Caribbean, because we have when we look at the Caribbean as let's look at the Caribbean as just a basin, and probably one territory, right? The only thing that really separated us is the sea, the water, right? Because generally we compete in similar sports, albeit the Jamaicans probably, compete in more sports than probably any other Caribbean nation. And I'm talking about internationally, even, the winter sports, all of those sort of things. But when you look at the core sports, as Carole mentioned, let's say the 5 that she mentioned, I think it was football, track and field, basketball, netball, and cricket, right? Most of the Caribbean islands compete in these core sports. They may not be as competitive as others. And mind you, some may have an edge over others. We can say Guyana has an edge probably in cricket, She says Haiti has the edge over football. Obviously, Jamaica with its dominance in track and field and probably netball. Barbados could probably chop in with a little netball as well. Trinidad and Tobago as well. Basically, and even the smaller islands, the smaller territory, have some strength in some of the other areas. They can probably, they probably have a 2 or 3 world beaters in track and field, right? And then you might have others in other sporting disciplines, like probably the boxing and, and things like that. So, So
No, but
how?
certainly, Michael, I think it's good too, and I think that will open up the gateway where CARICOMs really do comes in, because now you have to have inter-travel within the Caribbean, depends on the location. You're talking about merchandise, that would be a huge one as well, right?
Yeah, merchandise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big in the sense. So, and I think certainly that is something we should really look into, and not really focus on the cricket much. I'm looking more on the football, and the netball, a
Mm.
lot more. And that two of the two sports I really would like to see more in terms of having a league within the Caribbean. And I think that will open up the gateway for that too. Then we look at track and field, Michael, because we hear about Jamaica is the home base. Well, there's no other islands that really have that big home base
Mhm.
for track and field. And Grenada have the stadium. We have countries coming in and train. Why can't we have a base in Grenada as well? It doesn't always have to be in one place. And I think that's really too a part of it, because what Jamaica have that Grenada don't have, or St. Vincent or Trinidad, and I think when I think so, we got to look at um, developing in some base where people can come in and train. We got to get creativity with those things, and I think that's what we are lacking to in terms of that. So we got to open up that mind of ours and start making things work.
And another thing about it, I listened to Carol. We have had Kathy on our program before, Brian, Lewis. I mean, there are hosts of people in the Caribbean
Yep.
that, brilliant minds, right? And I'm wondering why it is they're not used, see, I mean, because from time to time, you know, they come up with so many ideas and things like that. So, and it seems as if those in authority are not really listening. And probably one of these days, Rudian, we may have to bring these people together,
We
have a
have to.
program where we can have the Kathy and the and even the Esther Minard, and by the way, Kathy is someone who can fill in and not just netball, but she can fill in boxing because she has been an administrator, a sport
Yeah.
administrator for all these years, right? And where we can bring these people to share ideas, because I don't understand how these people are sharing all these ideas and things that are workable, right? And they are relevant. Even mind their age. It shows to an extent that they are keeping tab with technology and trend and all
Yeah,
these sort of
yeah,
things
yeah, yeah.
because they are throwing ideas that probably me and you and others are seeing that, hey, these things can work, and I don't know, we need to
They
find a
need to
way.
listen. I think government need to start seeing sports as not being amateur. And I think when they see it as being amateur, it's been treated as amateur. And I think that's a big part of it as well. I think World Athletics seen it as amateur too, and they're trying now to make it into a professional. Um, and then it becomes difficult because then the big question I always ask, where is the money for sports? You're getting money for a whole bunch of things else, but where's the money for sports? So I think they need to stop seeing it to that level. I mean, we talk about the character games, and it's one of the biggest. We hear they talk about it over and over. It's the biggest World Junior Games, but then where's the main sponsor for games like that? That is a world game that they see it as. So if you stop seeing it as amateur and treat it as professional, and I think that would make a big difference with government, the mindset, and stop making everything into politics. I think that's a big part of it too. Everything become into politics. People have good intentions and it turn into politics. So I think a few of that too really have to change in people.
uh, Kathy says, if you give a dog a bone that he does not want, he will walk away from it. This is what happens with most of our politicians. They tend to see sports as a vote catcher, right? And yeah, I mean, and it's right throughout the Caribbean, right?
Yeah.
The politicians. I mean, listen. we talking sports. I don't want to get it, but people like Kathy and others would have had that sort of interaction with them over the years, so they know. And not just politicians in one island; they would have had the interaction with politicians throughout the region,
across the region.
Because they involve in various sporting disciplines, whether it's locally or regionally. So they have had interactions with them over the years.
And Michael, and that's the thing too. Before you get at the but one of the things too, like I was saying, is dealing with tourism too. They have to utilize the athletes now. You have to utilize them, and once you bring them in, man, it's going to be huge. And go ahead.
Yeah, the point that Carole was making, about utilizing them. I don't understand how we don't utilize our regional sportsmen and women, especially for the regional conglomerates, whether it's the banks, whether it's as she says, rum, whatever products you have, right?
Whatever products you have,
and locally as well, you can use them because.
And you have to get it out there on the social media platform, because that's what really is trending now. And that's how you get the people into your country. Like you said, you don't need to bring an icon like Speedy to kind of promote your country. I know she want to get there, but that it shouldn't be. Like I was disappointed. That's going back one before you start. I was really disappointed with Jamaica not utilizing Usain Bolt in the time of his prime. After he's done and retired, then you want to make him your ambassador.
But in addition to that, to Rudian, and you talk about actual speed and things like that, so I'm wondering if Usain Bolt, for example, goes to St. Lucia, or Shellyan goes to St. Lucia, or Alfred goes to Antigua, whether we'll get that sort of, reception for them as we do. For example, look at Lafon. She was in Grenada recently.
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
Through the Kellen Batiste Foundation.
Yeah.
And the sort of problems they encountered to get her, to Grenada. The questions being asked and blah and promises, and then who not living up to promises and all these sort of things. And I'm saying, hey, and listen, and Aisha Speed probably got more, attention and approval and all these sort of things than our own people in the region, right? And that's what I'm trying to.
But also, Michael, last weekend, Lionel Messi was in Toronto with Inter Milan, and it's the first time BMO feels sold out. Like when I say sold out, it was sold out. It could be the last time they see Messi. Because some of them may not, because I don't think the division is played in Toronto or in Canada. It was sold out. And the same thing happened in Jamaica. When he went to Jamaica, the stadium was sold out for Lionel Messi. You understand? But you don't see nobody go to Argentina. To see them go to Argentina, just like they come to Jamaica for track and field. But that will even go back to track and field. When is the national championship in track and field? The stadium is not sold out. But take the same Usain Bolt to go in Europe, that stadium will be sold out.
Yeah, that's true. And
so
it's a lack of appreciation of our own.
It's a lack of appreciation of our own.
And sometimes, and I use the example where someone from the outside, and I'm saying outside, even of the region, will get that sort of roll carpet, all the, whatever it is they provided in the name of publicity, and our own people at home and in the region cannot get that. They ask all sorts of questions and they wonder over this and that and all these sort of things. And I will ask a question after Show Speed's visit to the region. How many islands can probably speak about visitors' arrival due to the fact of him, or whether they're just using the metric of how many people were able to, view? And then when you view what it is you're viewing, driving through an area or whatever it is like that. So, I mean, I have a different view about it, but that's the point. Karen say, how our sports ecosystem is set up in Grenada and having to work and represent Grenada. I support Rudian's point for unionization, and it can be targeted tenured national players, for example, 8 to 10 years. However, my point is that it goes back to the point made by Kathy Harper, Harper Hall, sorry, that you'll have to professionalize.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't
until you get there, you cannot. Yeah.
you can't unionize amateurs, in that
Amateurs.
way.
And that's
Yeah.
the thing. You cannot
So you'll have to have professional leagues before you can do that. Right. And I'm saying if you do have professional leagues, then you should go the route of being unionized and show it. So all of that can play into it, and it will be a good conversation having in the future in terms of whether or not we see the need for professional leagues in the Caribbean, one, and then two, the whole issue of unionization of our sportsmen and sportsmen.
And also, in addition to that, Michael, is also seen when in inter countries or islands, that when government is having a meeting concerning sport, have some of the athletes involved. Let athletes, or it doesn't matter in which sport, but be on the table. Let them be in there and have a point of view as well, because they're making point of view on things that they don't even play the sport. And many times you see a minister of sports who don't even know the sport, who don't even understand the sport, but they are a minister of sports. So that too have a big part to play too. You need people who understand that. You're not going to get somebody in a business role who don't have a business degree. Nobody in education who don't have education background. So you need people who actually have that be behind them, so that it can, they could have an understanding of what's really going on too. So I think athletes should be a part to be sitting on the table when ministers is having some sort of meeting in terms of budget and those type of things, to say, does it benefit us as well?
Well, the consultation rather, and in some instances that's what they speak about. That consultation should be along the lines of consulting with our sportsmen and sportswomen, right?
Yeah.
And that's why it's important too that when we have these organizations, sporting organizations, and I say the grouping, whatever, representing our sportsmen and sportswomen, it should be representative of sporting disciplines in the country, not just one. Because some people get the ideas, for example, if you have an Olympians Association, that it's primarily track and field.
I
think it should be along the lines of sportsmen and sportswomen. And in addition to an Olympian, because not everyone may be an Olympian, right? There should be an organization that actually represents the interests. You can, but I don't know if you want to come back to the whole topic of union or whatever, but it's an umbrella that represents the interests of our sportsmen and
sportswomen.
I mean, when you say union and unionization, it's almost like a taboo, basically along the lines of that.
Or somebody who is representing or speaking on the behalf of them. That's really something what it is. Or fighting for the fighting on their behalf. Well, something like that to an extent.
I like to use representing the interests
of the athletes,
of the sportsmen and sportswomen. Sometimes I want to use the sportsmen and sportswomen because you, particularly from a background of track and field, when you say athletes, people may believe that you just
I'm speaking about the sportsmen.
So I just want to say we generalizing it as a sportsmen and sportswomen, that we have some representative body or so that can represent their interests, right? And things like that. So I think it's important. It's along that line. Kathy says, thanks for inviting me to join your session. I have to leave now, but I just want to let you know that sports is one of the greatest nation builders, and we have to keep fighting for.
We see that. We see that. Michael, the biggest thing, and I keep saying it all the time, and I think that my government don't see that. And we have spoke about it in the past when some government travel to some places and not talk about sports. Everything else is speak about, but sports is not on the thing. And then when you look at the English League, I mean that Bill community, that Bill nation, and look at the European side. Sport is bigger than any other government areas in that they have. Sports is the biggest thing for some countries, and some countries generate funding because of sports. Because of sports.
Yes, and sometimes you wonder, you know, how it is they do not see it, except that it's something big at the time. So, for example,
Yeah.
someone goes to the Olympics and they win a medal, and then you hear all the big celebrations now being planned.
In plan. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that's it.
the welcome home, and by the way, the interesting thing about it is that the politicians take over
The whole thing.
they
Yeah.
take
They're in
over the
charge.
entire thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they say, okay, they plan to welcome home. They're the first to meet the athlete or athletes, right? They in all photos and everything. If there's a motorcade, they want to be in the motorcade, all these things. And then as soon as that is finished,
That's it.
end of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm telling, and we see that throughout the Caribbean, right? We have seen athletes, they spoke about these things. They are fed up. Some of them sometimes find reasons why they don't want to be part of it. Yeah, you don't understand why they don't want to return home right away. Some of them don't have a choice.
And a lot of them do not want to get involved. They don't want to get involved no more. In terms of open up themselves or put themselves in a position to be the ministers and to be the representative. They don't want to. And it's all about how you treat the athletes. Then you're gonna get that back too, right?
I was saying that you have instances where folks will go, they participate, they win, they blah, this sort of things, and they want to do something home for them, right? And they cannot do it until the person returns home. But then when you speak to them and you ask, hey, I'll go home and my own timing and things like that. So, right? Because and there are reasons why they do these things, because they understand that this is just the now, right?
The now.
Yeah, it's just the now, and it's just an opportunity for politicians to photo ops and all these sort of things, right? And you have to understand that they don't want to be part of that, and we have to treat our sportsmen and sportswomen better. But as Kathy rightly said, really cannot understand why we do not understand or appreciate how sports could be, as she described it, the greatest nation. And we have to keep fighting for more aggressive involvement in Caribbean governments, Kyron says, MB, that's where the sports symposium seminar comes in to educate. We got to sit at the table and discuss with all stakeholders. Kyron, we still fighting, we still negotiating, we still hoping. It's we're still Mr. Mike Sands has laid that on the table about 2 years now, right? And that's for the regional symposium. For the past year, we have been pushing for a local one, and we're still hoping that at some point in time we'll make a breakthrough on that local national symposium, sports, particularly in Grenada. But we, in the larger scale, we think there's a need also for regional heads and others. And when we say regional heads, we're talking about the heads of regional sporting associations to come together and be at the table and discuss. Because as Carole identified, Rudy, and it's something we have been saying, inter and intra-regional, but inter particularly for the bigger islands like Jamaica and Guyana and things like that, but intra-regional travel continues to be the biggest issue or concern, challenge facing sports and sports development in the Caribbean. Intra-regional. Many years ago, the OECS Sports Desk, and Kathy rightly said, at the time when we had the OECS Sports Desk, there was this, what they call the rebate. So if you were participating whether as an individual or as a team or a club within the Caribbean, within the OECS region, and you're using LIAT, there was what you call at that time an OECS rebate. You get a discount, right, to travel.
Yeah, to travel.
That in itself helped a lot of travel within the sub-region. So you had the OECS sports, and through the OECS sports, this in particular, whether it was squash, it was tennis, table tennis, boxing, the various sporting disciplines in particular, where we didn't have the cricket and things like that. So in terms of the OECS participating, but the sporting disciplines that were basically organized by the OECS sports desk, right? There was that rebate. As a matter of fact, I can go far as to tell you that even as journalists, well, I can't speak for everyone, but as a journalist myself, there was the rebate for us. Because if I'm going to cover an OECS tournament, I can get a rebate through LIAT.
Through LIAT.
Yeah, that was organized through the OECS sports. I don't know. Well, we don't have, the travel within the Caribbean is so disjointed now and things like that.
Yeah.
So, and it's so much a challenge now, even with some
and only that too, and the cost too.
Yeah. But that is why we need those folks to be at the table to discuss that, to look at the challenge. Because if you can subsidize other things, why not sports, right? Here's Nisha Craigwell. Nisha is from Barbados, and she's affiliated to the Caribbean Netball Association. Sports is a specialist area just like law and medicine. It is that it does not get the respect and financing that it deserves. We can only get out what we put in. It should not be looked at only every 4 years for some major game. I can only imagine what this region would look like if sports really received major investment. Lisa, not you alone. I mean, I'm telling you. Could you imagine what the region will look like, Rudy?
Will look like, yeah.
If the region gets its fair share, and I say fair share because even what Carole had suggested in terms of as much as probably 1% towards a sport fund, and yes, we might say a Caribbean sport development fund, but individuals can probably do it themselves, right?
Yeah.
Individual islands can do it themselves, right? And put some sort of contribution, towards sports development. Some islands do have other means of generating revenue for sports, like the national lottery. I don't know in other islands. I know for in Grenada, instance, you have the lottery authority and things like that. So, well, they talk about the theme, their motto is for development of sports, youth and culture, right? It's development of sports, youth, culture, nation building. They talk about that. There's a motto, but sports is included. I know that for a fact. Sports is always included in that. Just like here in New York, for example, the New York Lotto, a portion of the Lotto, and I think is either with casino, gambling, whatever it is, they use portion of that towards, things like sports and, these sort of things like that. So, even if you want to say the tax on cigarettes or whatever it is, goes towards that, but something that specifically goes towards the development of sports. We have to treat sports, and seriously, right? Thank you, Nisha, for that comment. And it would be nice for the agencies like sports, education, and tourism to package our athletes and send them the embassies abroad, such as Embassy Day in Washington or New York or Toronto. Yeah. I think Antigua does something to that extent where they use folks like Sir Vivian Richards and Sir Andy Roberts and others because, their main sporting heroes are basically cricketers.
Cricket, right?
Yeah, they are cricket, right? Whether it's Cutley Ambrose, Richie Richardson, the Sirs, right? And the Roberts, and others. They have been using them particularly to go, especially when they have tourism fairs, right? They use them, Rudian, as their sporting ambassadors, where they go, particularly in Europe, where they are known. Could you imagine as Sir Andy Roberts or Sir Richie Richardson or even as Sir Viv Richards in somewhere like London or Sydney, Australia?
Sydney, Australia. Jeez.
Or Delhi, India. These sort of things like that. So
Maybe South Africa.
Yeah, so these sort of places, so right? And that's why they use them, because they are the face of Antigua and Barbuda, particularly when it comes to sports. People who will go out there for them to. And the other thing about it is that all these guys, they are living on the island, right? They're living and they have active residents on the island.
It's the same thing as Usain Bolt. Like certain places you go, you utilize that. Those names will always resonate, right? So,
Nisha says, why can't we host our own major games and invite the rest of the world? We have to be building up other economies in the rest of the world. Get us the facilities. We have the experts who travel and make other countries look good. Which to an extent, Rudian, because we go abroad,
Right? But I say it all the time. They come as close to the United States, and because they are part of the NACAC, but not in the Caribbean. Besides the World Relays, we don't have no other major games in the Caribbean as such.
Let's use track and field, and banking on Nisha's point. Could you imagine a world championship?
World Juniors in Grenada.
Well, no, listen, World Championships, World Juniors, Commonwealth Games, athletics, and I'm using athletics in these various, the Olympics and athletics without Caribbean athletes. Think about a major sporting event like the Commonwealth Games, the Olympic Games, the World Championships, World Junior, without Caribbean track and field athletes. Let's say there are no Caribbean track and field athletes. Could you imagine that? The USA was not featured in some of the events of the World Relays. And that was not a big deal. You understand what I'm saying? They were not really missed per se. You understand what I'm saying? The Caribbean, the talent of the Caribbean. That's what I'm zeroing in on. So to bank on Nisha's point of why can't we host our own major games and invite the rest of the world to come, right? Because we build up their economies. We go, we travel, at great cost, right? And we complain a lot about the cost to go here, but we're going, right?
We're going still.
But we do not invest to bring them. We do not make that investment to bring them to our country, right? Thanks for that. Deborah Lynch, how do we get companies to buy into sports where their employees make the national team and have difficulties getting leave to represent their country? And in some instances, they get the leave without pay. Wow, you see that one? And that's something I think we have to look at, Rudian, particularly as it relates to sports policies. I know for Grenada, for example, the sports policies, it speaks specifically about that, but it appears that it's something that is still taking place around the region. And I believe it may not even be covered properly in Grenada because not everyone will talk about it, because I remembered a few years ago, for example, Dwayne Gill, right? And I can say that Dwayne Gill as a lecturer at T.A. Marshall Community College, and had to take no pay leave, basically, to travel with the West Indies team as a manager, as late as 2016 when we had about 3 Grenadians actually on the West Indies
West
on the
Indies
19 team,
On the 19 team,
West
yeah.
Indies on the 19 team at the World Cup, right? So he was there as the manager of the under 19 team, and he had to basically take no pay leave as a manager. And yeah, so this is something I know that we have been having problems with. I don't know if it's still commonplace, but it appears that these are things that from island to island, they are having the same problem, where our athletes and sportsmen and sportswomen in generalized term having to take no pay leave to actually represent their country. And here the hypocrisy of it is that when they do win, the same politicians who can make that change are the same ones in the photo op, you know? So yes, I think, Lynch, the thing about it has to be policy. And again, probably, Rudian, if we have proper representation, as you will say, your union, will ensure that things like that are,
are in place.
are in place, but certainly that is something I think is continuous a sticking point for our sportsmen and sportswomen in the Caribbean.
And especially if you have a government job.
Particularly private, let's say in the private sector, for example.
Private sector, yeah.
Because I know one of the things that was that's in part of the policy, the Grenada policy, for example, whereas in terms of the private sector, you offer incentives to the private sector. Tax incentives in particular.
Tax incentive,
right? So you have employees or employees that will need time, not just to travel and represent, but even to train, right?
Yeah.
Even if it means having to leave at least an hour before, and things like that. So, leaving an hour before work or getting to work 1 hour late, these sort of things like that. So, but these things are documented to the point that this person is training as part of the national football team or the netball team, right? And they do need the necessary time off, right? Whether it's an hour before, whether it's an hour after, whether it's 1 day of the week, for example, right? Just 1 day of the week. But that is enshrined in a policy, whereas the company will receive certain, incentives through whether it's tax breaks or whatever it is, whatever other incentives they can. But it is in the policy, right?
It's in the policy.
The Grenada policy. I can say that for a fact. That again these are the sort of things that we have to explore from other countries, because some of them don't have, some of them are developing, some of them do have, but it's not adhered to, and things like that. So all these things are things that we'll have to look at. And again, Rudian, if we get folks on the table to speak and speak directly to the decision makers, hopefully these things are, because sometimes you don't really need a sports policy for things. These are sort of almost common sense, low-hanging fruits, and things like that. Because a cabinet can take a decision and probably come up with 5 points, 5 things that they agree to, right? That can deal specifically with sports. However, we know that a cabinet conclusion can come forward, and then a next government comes in, and and things. So sometimes you need, as we say, if you have a sports policy that is approved in Parliament, and it basically becomes law, right? And all you will need to do it from time to time is probably amend,
amend it,
and things like that. So, but it is law that if Rudian goes and he wins a gold medal, right, in the Olympic Games or the Commonwealth Games or whatever, there is some sort of incentive, some sort of recognition that he will receive It does not. The law will not spell out whether it's 100,000 or 150,000, but definitely it will speak.
It speaks about something.
And it will be something where it can be discussed because time after time things can change, inflation, all sorts of things. So what you're receiving now, someone probably 5-10 years later may not receive the same thing. It might be more, or depending on certain factors, right? But you want these things to be, sort of as a more so policy than just a conclusion. Because again, I know of cabinet conclusions where ministers will say, or permanent secretaries will say, we have not been able to find such a conclusion, these sort of things like that. So, but if it's a policy and it's law, you have to. There's no if or but about it. Because I may not, Rudian, know what's the cabinet conclusion regarding certain decisions taken. But when it becomes law and things like that, so it's there. You can find it. You can make a search.
You can find it. Yeah.
Cabinet conclusions are things that if they fail to make it available to the public, they can make it available to the public.
But once it's law.
Once it's law, and it means therefore that it would have been debated in in Parliament. And basically how it's structured, the House and the Senate and things like that, and they might have been inputs and things like that. So right, Rudian. So we'll continue. By the way, let me let you know that the friendly international between Ireland and Grenada and Ireland, has completed. Grenada lost 5-0. That's the final full-time score in the match played in Spain. Let me see if I can get any information regarding. Yes, 5-0 was the final score. All 5 goals scored in the second half. Because remember, at halftime it was 0-0.
Halftime it was 0-0.
Yeah. So we had Cannons scoring in the 46 and 56 minutes, and then Moreland had a hat-trick in the 62nd, 81st, and 84th minutes, right? Let me see if there's any other. Surface was grass. The capacity of the stadium was 31,000. There isn't a friendly schedule for Grenada next, but I know Ireland playing Qatar on the 28th of May. That's on the schedule for them. There isn't much information. Average possession, 56% to 44, 56 in favor of Ireland, 44 to Grenada. Total shots for Ireland, 37, 2 to Grenada. 14 shots on target for Ireland, 0 for Grenada. 54 touches in opposition box for Ireland, 1 for Grenada. So it was basically a lopsided affair for Grenada. And so we'll continue to monitor, folks. I'll update on because lots of track and field in terms of our athletes this weekend. Both today and tomorrow. All right. Yeah, today and tomorrow, because I can let you know that we have the 400 meters, and let me do the NJCAA first. The 400 meters, we have the men's 4x4 with Josh Sylvester and Cameron Matlin. They'll be competing for South Plains. Devoni Ferguson, he's in the Indian Hills Community College 4x4 team. And I think Tygan Peterkin should be on Baton County 4x4 team as well. Well, all 3 teams qualify to the final, right? So that's in the 4x4. So whether it's South Plains, Indian Hills, or Baton County, we have Grenadians on that as well. Shantae Augustine should be featuring in the 100 meters, the hurdles. She qualified in the women's 100 meters hurdles. But we already reported that in the men's shot put, Jalen Calder, he finished 6th in the shot put, and DeAndre Bristol was 12th overall in the shot put. So many of them competing. And then in the 400 meters, we had both Devoney Ferguson representing Indian Hills, and who again qualified, Joshan Sylvester from South Plains. They qualified. Brilliant, some very impressive times from these guys.
Oh yeah.
Right?
I'm telling you, the guys are running really fast. Yeah.
Devoney Ferguson, 45.77. Prelims. I'm hoping that he can go lower than that.
Go a little lower than that, yeah.
Then Joshan Sylvester, 46.16 in that, right? And as indicated in the Conference USA Outdoor Track and Field Championships in I think it's in Tennessee. Yeah, in Tennessee, Jamara Patterson in the 400 meters. Wow, she put on an impressive 52.56 to qualify. And she will be competing in the finals today at 7:55 p.m. She'll be running out of lane number 5. Well, she got the preferred lane because she had the fastest qualifying
time.
Yeah, they used the rule 15, 12.3, with the preferred lanes being 5, 4, 6, 3, 7, 2, 8, 1. I had an argument with someone some time ago talking about this. I'm saying the organizers can use various rules, right? And even if you had the preferred lane, remember, as the fastest qualifier, you have the preferred lane, but you can choose. You can make your choice. You know that, Rudy, eh? You can actually decide.
That I didn't know. I thought you get a preferred lane, which is 4-5.
Yes, you get the preferred lane, which is 5, right? In that case, but as the preferred lane, you can say, okay, I'll take 4. You know?
Oh, okay.
You had the fastest time. You get the preferred lane. That is how it's assigned. The preferred
lane
is assigned 5, 4, 6, 3, 7, 2, 8, and 1.
Yeah.
2, 8, and 1. Preferred is 5 based on the rule. So I remember last time they say, why they not in 4? And think, hey, yeah, the athlete probably decided they want 4.
They want 4 and 4.
The preferred lane is 5.
It's 5, yeah.
And based on the rule, 5, yeah. So she will be in that. She'll also be in the women's 4x4. That will be later in the day, which will be 10 o'clock this evening, 10 o'clock in the night. Then in the Big Ten, the big boys will be competing. Nazio John. Well, I know he qualified in the 200. The first round of the men's 100 will actually be this afternoon, later on, right? Yes, the 100. And the Angelo Brown, 800 meters.
Yes.
Right.
D'Angelo, yeah.
Nazio is competing for Ohio State, and D'Angelo is representing Indiana University. He'll be in the 800 meters later
this
afternoon.
I say the Indiana Hoosiers.
Yeah. And then so Nazio will also be competing in the 4x1 as well. So, and then we have the SEC championships as well going on. By the way, folks, I just mentioned that was Grenadian athletes, but there's so many Caribbean athletes.
Yeah.
We have LeBron James from Trinidad and Tobago. Right? Yeah, LeBron James of Trinidad and Tobago. He was impressive in the javelin. Yeah, and things like that. So but a big shout out again to Jamara Alves. She took the shot put yesterday, and that's the Big East, right? And today she took the discus in a record-breaking
national.
Yeah, well,
national
national record, right? And her PB, she was looking for her 56, but she got a 55.89. She continues to improve, and she goes on to the East I think, yeah.
East Region, yeah, East Region Championship.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the East regions will be in Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in Kentucky,
Lexington. Yeah,
East region. And yes, she will be competing in that, and that is qualification for
yeah. Top
nationals.
12 move on. Yeah,
Yeah, nationals will be June in Oregon, right?
Oregon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Hayward Field, the iconic Hayward Field, where we will see, hopefully, we'll see so many of our junior athletes because
yeah.
not too long from there after we have
The home of the World
World Juniors,
Juniors.
the
Yeah,
World
home of
Juniors.
the World Juniors. Yeah,
So it will be also an opportunity for them to climatize
for them to
themselves.
climatize themselves
Yeah,
with it,
yeah.
with the track. It's a beautiful track and a beautiful stadium, So yeah,
Yes, so our Caribbean athletes will be competing. We look out for them, certainly, because the track and field in particular will be on the forefront from now until probably September with all these, because we remember we have Commonwealth Games coming up as well. So
yeah.
apart from track and
And
field,
NACAC. Yeah,
we have all these other sporting disciplines, because I believe that our netballers should be participating in the Commonwealth
the
Games.
Commonwealth Games.
I think, do we have cricket? I know cricket will be in the Central American and Caribbean Games come 2027, because remember, all of that is in preparation as well
Preparation for the LA Olympics.
and the Olympics, right? So, yeah. So wherever, folks, you can get to see or view or follow up on our athletes throughout the region, please do. Lots of championships on this weekend. Next weekend should be the Whitsuntide Games in Grenada.
Whitsuntide Games, yeah.
Whitsuntide Games in Grenada. So there's track and field in Grenada as well, Saturday and Sunday. The Monday is the Whit Monday, which is a holiday, right? Yeah. So, yeah. And then I think this weekend there's also there is track and field in Jamaica. There is a Puma. Let me get the correct name for you. The Puma. Yes, here it is. It's the meet number 2. Last week was meet number 1. This week is
meet number 2. Yeah.
J3 is Puma meet number 2, right? It's on at the National Stadium in Jamaica. Should start around 5:30 Jamaica time, which is about 6:30 Eastern.
6:30 Eastern time.
Yeah. So track and field on again, and you can follow the live action again on Track Alerts TV.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So those who not on the Diamond League circuit certainly will be competing in Jamaica later on. And by the way, we see a lot of Caribbean athletes competed in number 1, because as Carole was saying, and Rudy, and you know that we have a lot of Caribbean athletes who are actually training in Jamaica. We have Sally Williams from Barbados, who is based in Jamaica. That's a training ground. Yeah. We have Bascom from Trinidad and Tobago. She is actually in Jamaica. I think she may be schooling there as well. Some of them will go to school, whether it's at University of Technology or UE or whatever, but they use Jamaica as their training base.
Yeah.
We have a number of, and then we also have the high school athletes who are actually in Jamaica, and some of them time to time. Yeah, Rudian. So let's wrap. What's will be happening this weekend in your neck of the woods?
Nothing really. It just there's not much happening over here, but certainly it's on your side. It's good to see that the Knicks is doing well and making New York proud. So I hope you guys are proud of the New York Knicks.
Oh,
yeah. Certainly, they are making me proud too. I like the Knicks.
As your good friend Toro will say, the Knicks is only there because the Raptors they teeth the Raptors,
They keep the Raptors, yeah. You say that, but certainly, but we'll see who they're gonna face. I think they're gonna go to the NBA championship. So they look good.
They look good.
And they have the rest too. It's very long rest. I don't know if it's too much or if it's too less, but they get a very long rest compared to the other two teams who's going to Game 7 and then come back again for another 7-game series. it's a lot on the body for those guys, but let's see how it goes. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
that's,
yeah.
and then we have the preparation for the World Cup. You know, um, Rudy and the boy listen and well, and then watch and read, especially for the folks who are going to the well, and there are folks who they probably have not bought their tickets as yet.
Can't take it yet.
But
Yeah,
tickets are very expensive,
it is
right?
very, and at first it wasn't supposed to be
But
that expensive, but it's
yeah, but
very expensive.
but what it is like in Canada, I know Canada
Well,
hosts.
there is a different. Like, I think they was giving away about 1,500 tickets.
Oh, okay, okay. For
Yeah,
some,
there was a giveaway about 1,500 tickets, and I think, I mean, to get in line, you got to be probably lining up for 2 days. So some people probably line up for 2 days just to get a ticket. But certainly, it's going to be an interesting. Listen, the World Cup is maybe probably the biggest sporting event globally. I think.
yeah, but biggest
Um,
over TV or biggest in terms of spectators? Because
I think it's both. However, we know the situation
mm,
that most people dealing with in terms of traveling and so forth.
yeah, right.
But I think in terms of in different other locations in the world where it's had been played, we've seen a sold out crowd.
Because it was quite
Yeah,
interesting that earlier in the week, Rudy, and I heard reports that and heard and read that even some of the USA games were not sold out.
well, it's sold out yet.
In
Yeah,
fact, the
yeah,
opening game wasn't sold out.
yeah,
And they were talking about very expensive tickets. And then even when it closer to home, when I say home, I'm talking about New York area.
yeah. New York area. Yeah,
Getting to New York, getting to New Jersey, getting to the stadium itself, where you have to use the train and all these
the
other
train is
very
not driving. Yeah, it's very expensive. It's
yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how it happened, and I really hope that they pull it off because it's good for the regions, the three nations, hosting. And we don't want to be able to have the bad taste in our mouth. We really had it already with Montreal Olympics. That
Mhm.
Canadians is still feeling it even to this day. Still feeling it.
Well, you mean Montreal?
Montreal.
And listen, Rudy,
Yeah.
the Olympics was in 1972. How they could
And
still
it's
be
1972, and they're still feeling it today, to this day. So certainly, we do want them to certainly be positive in that. And I think, yeah, it's. I just think the disappointment was the ticket price because at first it wasn't supposed to be that expensive, and then it turns out to be very expensive. And then you have the issue where visas is not permitted to some countries, to some people. That could also be a challenge for them, the visitors as well, to go into the United States, probably not to Mexico, neither to Canada, but United States is a challenge. So, regardless of what the situation is, the Olympics, it's going to happen. with some people. So I guess television rights is going to make a lot of money.
yeah.
Yeah, they're going to make a lot of funding. They are going to make a lot of money.
I think
Yeah.
they are not the rights holders and thing, and they're not worried about how
They're
many
not worried about nothing. Yeah,
stadium. They know that
yeah.
people
They
watch
know.
again, huh?
So people is going to watch. Yeah,
Whether it's at the
people is going
bar,
to take time off.
people
Yeah, wherever. And
yeah,
and
watch
certainly,
parties.
as you said it right, watch parties is going to be huge. I mean, when World Cup was in other countries, right here in Toronto, at a certain location in certain areas across the city, there was watch parties, big television screens put down. So just imagine now the amount of watch parties they're going to have. Plus, the bars will be opening. And I know in the past they give them the permission to sometime from early morning they could start selling liquor because there's a time. So it
Yeah.
depends on where the game was located, they can start selling liquor. So certainly, I think that will be the biggest things. And some people will enjoy a watch party the same as being in the game because you're in the stadium, you're in a bar drinking, and the crowd is there with you as like you're in the game. So certainly, let's see how it goes. But it's excitement, and I'm looking forward to see the World Cup here in Canada.
Yeah, well, That's
Yeah.
I'll be
And I know for you, you'll be on point because the security and so forth going to be big time. You're going to be on standby. You're going to be very busy for the next month, you know. So
yeah,
with everything,
that's
yeah,
always
yeah,
a major concern.
major concern. Yeah,
Yeah,
major
yes.
concern. Yeah.
All right, Rudian, thank
So
you very much. Always a pleasure having
it's
you.
always a pleasure.
Yeah,
So
the
certainly,
Prime Minister
yeah.
is in town this weekend. In fact,
Yes, I think I think he's going to be in Montreal. I believe he's also coming to Toronto. I think I heard
yeah,
there is
I know
also
definitely will be
something.
Montreal. I know he
I
was
heard
at the
Montreal on the 4th, but I think my aunt was letting me know that they organized something for him to come here as well.
yeah,
So that is something to be interesting.
yeah, I know he attended a commencement ceremony for the St. George's University earlier today.
University. Yeah,
So
yeah, I saw
just
that.
some
Yeah.
videos before coming on air. Gordon Julian, good afternoon. He says, too much uncertainties for the price. I am keeping my money to buy drinks and
Yeah.
watch the games from home.
Listen, most people, and that's the thing too, because you're gonna have people buying some major big screen TVs. So you're gonna have places like the Best Buy and Walmart and
Julian,
Costco. They're gonna be buying the 85 and 70 and 95-inch TV just to watch the World Cup.
they will treat that as Super Bowl, except that the
Yeah.
Super Bowl is one night.
It's
The
one
World Cup
night. There's the
goes
World Cup
spread
is,
over a
and then
while.
they have so
So
many different games because then
yeah,
these guys that have listen. You buy a TV screen that can split. Okay, you know you can split your four
yeah,
different games. You're watching four games at a time. Yes, you can hear from one, but you're watching four games at a time.
yeah.
Man, that's a sight. So I think people's backyard was set up with projectors and all these things,
Yeah, with
watching games.
projectors.
Yeah,
Yeah,
projectors and so forth. Right. So yeah.
projectors and you know, and then don't forget there'll be a lot of bettings, a lot of bet.
Oh yeah, there's
Yeah,
always,
but
always,
but
always. Yeah.
I think, and based on what Gordon is saying, this is what we're hearing from a lot of people too, is that hey, listen, what you'll find is that probably the neighbor will have something up, probably in the
Yeah,
backyard, and you know we're going into
yeah,
the summer, so
yeah.
weather
And some
improving, you
streets,
know,
like
and
if
here,
Canada is playing, some streets might be locked off. Just have a screen in the middle of the street. Some places, like we have places out here that is little Italy. We have places that has those. You know, Italy is not in, but you know, also over the years, those areas and stuff like the areas that is the Portugal, the African nations. So a lot of these areas have their own little sector that they're gonna the Mexican area, um, and those areas, and then will probably block up the whole street. They'll probably just have a street party down there, and they will certainly give them the permission to shut the street down
yeah.
and so forth. Right? There's a lot of works being done for the subway and just making sure that things run right, things run good, but. It's coming, and like I said, the security is going to be beyond. It is a long weekend for us too, Michael. It's Victoria long weekend for us out here, so it's busy weekend. You know, fireworks and so
Oh,
forth
so
happening.
Monday is a
Yeah,
holiday,
Monday's a holiday. Yeah,
and then is it
yeah.
Memorial weekend is also you all is it the holiday for
But
Monday as well?
ours is no. So I guess it's the opposite. We got Victoria, and you guys get Memorial. So I think is that there's and you guys is the following week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are the following week. So we are the week before, and you guys are the following week. Probably some banks people might get it because of the holidays for the US, and depends on which sector of a bank they're working in, they might get those. But usually, it's not really a holiday for most people when you have yours Memorial.
Yeah, our
Yeah,
Memorial Day falls on Whit Monday, so it's
yeah,
almost like a double holiday,
a double holiday.
you know. Yeah, the
Yeah,
yeah Whit Monday, and it's also Memorial Day holiday
Memorial Day. Yeah, yeah.
as well.
So
But
it's
yeah,
gonna be double whammy, but it's gonna be fun.
all right then.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Rudian.
no problem. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
All right then. Right, Rudian Sylvan, co-host in Toronto. Yes, folks, and just sort of wrap because you know it's certainly an opportunity. Whoa, yeah. As we have been talking, you know, ask the question: should Caribbean governments dedicate a percentage of national budget specifically to sports development? That's the burning question, and I think it's something that we may want to, you know, talk about, you know, over and over, and whether or not it's feasible, it's definitely something we can, discuss more and more, I believe. Should Caribbean governments commit a fixed percentage of national budgets to sport development, and what Caribbean sport, or what sport in the Caribbean has the greatest untapped potential? Which sport do you think? Which one? The greatest? Is it track and field? Do you think it's football? Do you think it's cricket? Which one? Oh, should there be a regional fund to support athletes, coaches, clubs, and federations? What do you think? Yeah. Folks, always a pleasure. I just like to talk sports. I can do it for the entire day, especially on a weekend, but yeah, I want some time to go and watch some sports, By the way, folks, Manchester City, FA champions, defeating Chelsea 1-0. Just 1 goal scored. Yeah. And as we march on to glory, we'll be marching on to the Premier League as well. Arsenal, please watch out. Yeah. So Manchester City defeating Chelsea 1-0 at Wembley today to win the FA Cup. And just to update again, Grenada losing 5-0 against Ireland in their international friendly played in Spain today, right? Not a good result for the Grenadians. They haven't been successful in their international friendlies, the international duties. And track and field on. We still have track and field on, especially our college athletes. They continue, and we're wishing them all the best. Folks, there is also, as you know, police games. Yeah, police games on. The road race is tomorrow. Police Week Committee, road race, Sunday the 17th, 4 p.m. The male competitors will start at SSU Camp. We'll go towards Woodlands Springs and then onto the Central Police Station. And then the female will start at the Sugar Mill roundabout there, Woodlands Springs, and then to the Central Police Station. So the ending point will be at the Central Police Station, which is on the Caranage. Everyone is invited. Registration for civilians is on the day. Oh, so you can participate as a civilian. You're invited to participate as well. It's not just for the police officers, but the registration for civilians is on the day. And must dip to fall into a specific. Okay, so you register as a civilian, you will register. And when you register, you will dip. You have a dip. And you will fall into one of the 4 clubs: Ogilvy, which is blue, James green, Clarkson red, and Bido yellow. And these names all represent former commissioners. Ogilvy blue, James green, Clarkson red, and Bido yellow. So as a civilian, when you go and register, then you will dip and you will get a number, or probably a color, whatever it is. You will fall into a club, and I assume you'll be given points to the club, right? A nice way of getting, I think, Alan, I believe that's the trick, when because I'm certain that folks will go and say, I want to represent James or represent this color, just to give points. But that is the trick. So when you register, you dip, you get a color or whatever it is, but representative of whatever. And then, so Police Week will continue. And then on Monday the 25th, which is Whit Monday, there is the Windball Cricket Fiesta and Retirees Link Up. It's at 10 a.m. at Malmont Playing Field. Malmont, that's in St. David, Malmont, yeah. Free food, drinks on sale. Well, free food, but drinks on sale. It starts at 10 o'clock. Bido versus Clarkson, James versus Ogilvy. That's game 1 is Bido versus Clarkson, and James versus Ogilvy, game 2. Go out and support, celebrate the game and the legacy, and as well as support the lawmen and women as part of Police Week 2026. Lots of activities happening. So this weekend, as tomorrow, we have the road race. Go out and support. You can participate as well. You have to register on the day. You can register on the day, and if you can be on the, if you're not, you can support by being along the route, as well as the finish line, which is at the Central Police Station on the Carolage. Folks, that's all for this weekend. Always a pleasure being with you. Until then, do have yourself a pleasant weekend, and please don't forget, continue supporting our sportsmen and women.